Good morning, internet, and welcome back to Minecraft. Guys, we gotta teach Starry all about video game consoles. Cause Starry, what do you know about video games?
Minecraft.
Minecraft is a video game. That's right. You did it. You get a cookie.
Oh my god, it's the best meaty cookie ever.
Meaty cookies. Yes, yes. So today we're gonna be working on Rex, and I'm gonna be working on the satellite dish and whatnot. But we have to tell Starry all about video games. We were in a conversation with Starry a little bit earlier, and you know, I have collected all of the video games. Every single gaming generation I have collected in my home. And so it's time to educate Starry on video games. So we're gonna cover the entire history of video games today. You guys ready to kids? You guys ready to learn about video games? It's gonna be a fun time. Hope you like learning, because it's gonna be a fun time. Oh yes. And by the way, if you guys are new to the channel, then make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't already. That way you'll be notified next time that we go live, and you can hang out with us while we're live. I'm ready. Yay! Soren is ready to learn all about video games. Alright, sounds good. Alright, so as the Mad Hatter says, we're gonna start at the beginning, and then when we get to the end, stop. No truer wise words have ever been spoken.
Daddy Johnny needs to incorporate that into his lectures.
Yes. Absolutely. Okay. So, moving on. So when video games first came out, all that there ever was Pong. They made a video game system that could just play Pong, and that was it. And that was the very first generation of video game consoles. And there wasn't too much competition. It was that's pretty much all they were. I think back then, I think they thought video games were just going to only be Pong, and maybe that what was I gonna say? In the same way you have, like, you know, table hockey. Is that what it's called? Air hockey?
What are you trying to say?
Air hockey. You know, like that table game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Start college soon on anxiety. Nice. Yeah, so like air hockey, I think that when video games first happened, like when there was just enough processing power to produce a video game, I think that a lot of people thought it wouldn't really go anywhere, and so they treated it like its own category. So kind of like air hockey, they just treated Pong as the only video game. And that was it. And so there were a lot of different systems that just played Pong. Isn't that interesting?
So they're like, oh, Pong, that is it. This is elite. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. So they're like, oh my gosh, Pong. So you use the computers to run Pong, and like that's it. And that's the only video game that there is.
So they thought Pong was no cat.
Oh my god, we love colleges. Yes, yes. So, what happened not too long after is they're like, wait a minute, it doesn't have to be Pong. We could design other video games. And so instead of Pong, there was also one that I believe Steve Jobs invented, where it was like kind of like one-player Pong, where the objective was to delete all of the squares in the area, and so the ball was bouncing around the room, and you had your paddle at the bottom, and you just needed to prevent it from getting past you. So you were basically like the goalie, right? So that is another game that came out then, and then so Atari was one of the best sellers of the Pong clone boxes. Passcode, hey, Answer Villa, welcome, welcome. Answer Villa, I'm not sure I've seen you in here before. Are you a returning subscriber or are you a new subscriber? Welcome. And then yes, we will absolutely send you the code. Absolutely. So then not too long after that, Atari, the company, decided, wait a minute, what if instead of just having one machine for one game, what if we design a machine to have interchangeable hardware, and on the hardware was programmed specific code that would run a specific game. So people don't need to buy a $300 machine per game. They could only just buy one $300 machine, and then we can make a ton of money off of selling interchangeable games. And that, my friends, is what changed the world. So then the Atari 2600 was born. It is the console that is in the thumbnail for this video. The Atari 2600. And it was unbelievably dominating the market. The Atari 2600 really had no competition. There was other competitors out there, but none could hold a candle to what they were making with Atari. So that was pretty much it. And it was the Wild West of video games. Anyone could publish a game, and so if anyone could publish a game, they did. So there was a video game of pretty much every single thing you'd ever possibly imagine on the 2600. And the 2600, all that it had was a controller that was shaped like a cube, and it had an analog stick, or a joystick, and one button, and that was it. You'll be 42 years old when you complete your degrees. Nice. So that was it. That was it. That's all that there ever was on it. And on this system, game developers realized that, wait a minute, we didn't have to make a good game. We just had to make a game that looked good on the packaging, and people would buy it. Because there was no returns. So if you bought a game and you didn't like it, well, sucks for you, because the company already got your money. So that encouraged game developers to make really, really, really rushed and bad games. There was no real, like, word of mouth because the internet didn't exist, and so people couldn't, like, write reviews of games. There was no institution for that. So absolutely the Wild West of video games. Absolutely no regulation whatsoever. And so people, since it was so new, people didn't really know what to make of video games. And again, if you saw any Atari games, they are very blocky and let's just say like barely playable. Like you really had to use your imagination for what was going on. Like there was a game called Journey where you, I guess, were wandering through like a jungle, but really it's just you were a 2-pixel rectangle that wandered through different green rooms, and that was it. So like you really had to use your imagination. Okay, this is the dawn of video games. So so nothing really was going on. And actually, we just played Grand Theft Auto Vice City today, and one of the jokes that was being made is it was about a new video game that just came out, and the guy on the radio was like, yeah, can you imagine, like, you play as a robber, and so you have to maneuver you as the red pixel, but that is you being a robber. And they're like, yeah, red pixel! And they're just joking because you really had to use your imagination for what was going on. Like, you cannot, like, the box art was kind of like the idea of, all right, you play as this guy as Indiana Jones, and Indiana Jones in the game is literally just a brown cube. That's it. So, yeah, you really had to stretch it. That being said, the game that absolutely destroyed the future for the Atari was when they contracted Steven Spielberg to make a game for the movie E.T. that was coming out. And so, the movie E.T., have you seen E.T.? Abby? I couldn't hear you. What?
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did. Okay, great. What'd you think of E.T.?
I saw it when I was like 12. It completely scared me, terrified me. Nope.
Oh, really? It scared you?
Good.
That's so funny.
Yes, thank you for that.
My pleasure. By the way, everyone, a quick public announcement. E.T. is coming back out in theaters in IMAX on September 2nd. My birthday!
Yay! Fuck no to ET, but yay to
Yay,
birthday!
birthday! And Jaws in 3D, too. So that'll be fun. But moving on from that. Okay, so so E.T. has been, filmed for like the past 3 years or so, and they're wrapping up the project. They're getting ready to release it, and video games are new, and so they're like, oh hey, let's make a movie licensed game of E.T. And so they did, and they figured it would sell so well that people would buy more Atari 2600s in order to play this game. So, now I forgot to mention this game was allegedly the most rushed game of all time. This game was made in, I believe, like 1 week. Have you met? I've not. I'm not Starry. You can also talk, Starry.
Yes, I don't want to interrupt.
Okay. Okay. So E.T. was allegedly the most rushed game of all time. I believe it only took them like 1 week to make this game, and it definitely shows. So E.T. the game comes out, and it is the worst game like ever made. It is absolutely broken, unplayable, and you don't even understand what's going on, and you just get stuck all the time. And yeah, you really had to stretch your imagination on what the hell was going on. And it frustrated people so much that they were taken advantage of because of this game. Hello! Hi, asshole! That everyone said, fuck it. We're not buying video games anymore. It was, E.T. was the straw that broke the camel's back. And so everyone thought that video games were a fad, and so then the entire video game market crashed because of this event. And it looked like that video games were gone for good, because they stopped making video games altogether. No company wanted to make a system, and no one wanted to make games, and so, because no one trusted them anymore. They didn't want to get ripped off. So, yeah, games were expensive. They were, I think they were like $40 per game. And in 86, $40 was like, what? Maybe like $120 now? I don't know the exact inflation, but I don't know. Maybe Abby, maybe Starry could figure it out. Starry, if you Google how much $40 was in 1986 in today's money.
$108.13.
I was not far off. I was so close. Okay. So yeah, so basically over $100. So games were expensive. And yeah, so people just were like, screw it, we're done. So video games were over for quite a long time. Until Nintendo showed up. And Nintendo said, okay, we need to make sure that if we're going to make video games, we first need to not advertise it as a game, because people have the idea of games has a really bad taste in people's mouths right now. So we're going to advertise this as a toy. So what they did was they came up with this Rob the Robot toy thing that connected into your Nintendo Entertainment System. And then you played a video game where Rob the Robot, which was a toy robot that has cameras on it, watches you, and like you interact with it, and then it like does something on the screen. I don't fully understand it, but that's what it was advertised as. It was advertised as a toy. And so people were like, oh, that's cool. And Nintendo was really big at the time for selling playing cards. Nintendo, up until then, had sold playing cards for the past 100 years. So Nintendo is pretty well known for their toys. I guess you consider that a toy. So so they sold this Rob the Robot thing, and after people bought it, so Rob the Robot also came with a game known as Super Mario Brothers. And that changed everything.
Well, no shit. Uh-huh.
Yes. And so, but one other staple that Nintendo needed to make sure of was that game developers were not going to rush their games and have shit games on the Nintendo Entertainment System. So this is the beginning of the third generation of consoles. After a long break. I think it was like 4 or 5 years where there was just like no video games. I might be wrong in that, but I think it's right around that much time went by. So after that, well, how did Nintendo control who can release on their system? Can't anyone just make a game? They could. So what Nintendo decided to do was Nintendo decided to make a unique proprietary chip for every video game cartridge that the Nintendo Entertainment System had to read. So anyone can make the cartridge, but without this chip, the Nintendo Entertainment System would say, nope, this is not an authorized game. It will not play. So game developers had to buy these chips from Nintendo in order to put it in their games. So Nintendo had full control over what games would release on the system.
God damn.
So, every single time a developer wanted to make a game, it had to go through Nintendo. Nintendo would have to review it and make sure it was a really good game. And if it was a really good game, then Nintendo would give it the official Nintendo license seal of approval. And that would be predominantly displayed on every Nintendo game up until literally this day. They still do that on the Switch. If you look at any of your Switch games, you'll see the official Nintendo license seal of approval on the package.
Holy crap.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, pretty 1984 of them, but cool.
1984 of them?
Yeah. Have you read that book by Orson Welles?
No. Tell me about it.
It's a book where it takes place kind of like in a dystopian universe where like shit hits the fan, in the way that the government is always watching you and they're super regulated. Like you literally can't talk, you can't do anything, you can't even sweat without them knowing, because there's always cameras everywhere, and they have these giant posters, or they have to have these giant posters in every room of the house where it says and they have like tiny little cameras and little microphones where they could hear you, and they're documenting literally everything. And if you do something wrong, big spoilers for anyone, by the way, or major help on your English homework. for the book that you didn't read. So if you do something and if they don't like it and stuff, like, I don't know, try to rebel, or talk shit about Big Brother, then they take you to this room and they put you, like, they surround you with your worst fears and stuff, and it's psychological torture. But the big premise of that is that the government is evil. But yeah, their big giant phrase was Big Brother is watching. And that's what they call the government. They're like, oh, government loves you like your older brother. Big Brother, we're always watching.
Oh, that's really cool. When did that come out?
Orson Welles wrote it, so quite a while ago.
Before 1984.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Well, with Nintendo, this all happened like right around that time anyways. So it's kind of funny that you said that. Yeah, I think NES was 86?
1949 it came out.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's cool. Okay, so anyways, yeah, so Nintendo's all Big Brother to all these game developers. And yeah, they would absolutely not publish a game unless they rationed out these chips that would go into the game cartridges so that they would work on the NES. Okay, and that was to have quality control. And it worked. Nintendo games were very good. So good that it started up the entire gaming industry by itself. And so there were other competitors, like Atari tried to get back in with the Atari, I think was the, let's see, 2600, 4800? I think it was. Yeah, that makes sense. There's the 7200. Yeah, I think the 7200 was later. So yeah, I think Nintendo's competitor, or excuse me, yeah, Nintendo's competitor was the Atari 4600. And then, or was it the 4800? Yeah, 4800. 4800. And then there was also the Sega Master System. And that one sold okay, but absolutely nowhere near what the Nintendo Entertainment System did. But no company would ever have the dominance that Atari would have again with the second generation. Atari had absolutely, essentially a monopoly on the entire video game industry. And, I mean, kind of rightfully so, they basically created it. But yeah, so that was Nintendo, and that was the third generation, and they invented Mario, and then they invented The Legend of Zelda, and I don't know when Pokemon came on, but yeah, that's when Nintendo games really started to get their name. What?
First release, Pokemon Red and Green released in Japan in 1996.
Oh, wow. Okay. Never mind. Yeah, we're very far off. So, anyways, that was the third generation of consoles. And then, Sega was watching. Sega! They were like, hey, Nintendo's really successful because they have a mascot. They have Mario. So we need to make a new system and have a mascot ourselves. So then in 89, I think it was, the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, was an 8-bit console. And so was the 2600. But Sega was like, why don't we make a twice as powerful system and have it be a 16-bit system? It'll look way better. And so Sega made a much more powerful system. known as the Sega Genesis, and that was the beginning of the 4th generation of consoles, which Sonic came out on and was absolutely no competitor to Mario. It looked and ran so much better. In fact, yeah, the sound was really good too, and so it was a huge competitor. The sound on the NES was not the greatest, and so Nintendo realized, oh man, like we need to compete, because the Sega Genesis started to diminish the NES's sales because everyone wanted the Genesis instead, and so they realized quickly, oh man, we have to continue to make systems as our competitors make systems, otherwise we're going to be left in the dust. So 2 years later, they released the Super Nintendo, and that was 1991, I think. And so that was part of the 4th generation, was the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. The Super Nintendo, they wanted to up their sound quality, so they went to Sony to ask them to make the sound chip inside of the Super Nintendo. At the time, Sony was really big for the Walkman. Everyone had a Walkman. Does Starry know what a Walkman is?
Starry does not know what a Walkman is. Starry was assuming a Walkman was a walkie-talkie.
You're not too far off. So the Walkman, before there were CD players, there was cassette players. And so the Sony Walkman was a cassette player that would fit in your pocket. So it was essentially like the first kind of like iPod. This was a really big deal in the 80s. Everyone had a Walkman. And so Sony was really famous for that. So everyone had a Walkman, and then Sony got really big into other electronics. Everyone had Sony TVs and Sony camcorders, Sony stereos. Sony was known for their electronics. If it was a Sony, you knew it was as good of quality as you can get. Sony was never a cheap company. If it was Sony, it was like the best. So Nintendo went to Sony to make their sound chips. And then Sega felt threatened by that, and so they're like, we need to upgrade. And CDs were just invented at the time. Very, very early inception for CDs. And they thought, hey, we can actually fit a lot more data on a CD than a cartridge. So why don't we start making games on the CDs? And so Sega sold an add-on to the Sega Genesis called the Sega Cd. So it would attach into the game cartridge slot of your Sega Genesis and fed off of the electricity from that to run the CD player. And then it would play CD games. And those would fit huge games, as well as, from my understanding, a little bit extra power. So that was a threat for Nintendo, because Nintendo, they only had cartridges. And so they're like, okay, we need to make a CD add-on too for the Super Nintendo. So they went back to Sony, and they're like, hey, Sony, can you develop us a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo, and we'll market it as the PlayStation. And Sony's like, all right, sure, let's do that. And so the contract that Sony wrote up with them Nintendo agreed to it, and they were working on it. And then after they had already agreed to it, Nintendo noticed in the writing that Sony would essentially own the rights to any of the games on the CDs and the CD attachments and everything. The only main benefit that the Nintendo would have was the idea that more Super Nintendos would be sold because of the cool new CD technology. Well, but Sony would own all of the rights to the games and everything. So this is dangerous for Nintendo. And they realized that way too late. And so for years, Sony was working on this system, and at the, I believe it was the Electronic Entertainment Expo of 1993, Sony went on stage to announce, hey everyone, we are working with Nintendo on a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo, and we are calling it the PlayStation add-on. And as they announced it, to my understanding, a spokesperson from Nintendo walked up on stage and took the microphone away from Sony at their own press conference and then said, actually, we've decided to work with Philips instead. And then it was like a huge mic drop. Stab in the back at Sony's event. Sony was fucking livid after this. So they're like, we were just stabbed in the back by Nintendo. And originally, the Sony competitors at Japan were not interested in getting into the video game business because they saw it as a toy. And then they're like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, the developers like, you know what? We shouldn't just stop where we are. Like, we can still have the rights to the games and everything and develop the CD technology. All we got to do is just make the rest of the system, and then we could have our own competitor. We will compete with the Super Nintendo. And so the Sony exec said, do it, out of a revenge story. So they made the PlayStation out of revenge. So based off of how the contract was written, they had the rights to the likeness of Nintendo in the CD form. So they were making a system that would play the Super Nintendo cartridges, and it would also play the CD games. So it would be a hybrid system. And they called it the Nintendo PlayStation. A few thousand of these units were made, and then they were quickly scrapped because Sony wanted to start paying attention to how the video game market worked. And so they realized that all the competitors that I'm mentioning are ones that were successful. I haven't been mentioning all the ones that are not successful. There, at the time, were a ton of other competitors trying to make video game consoles, and they all flopped. Like Magnavox and Intellivision, many others. Many others. They were all flopping. And so Sony was like, all right, we need to make sure that we don't make a system that flops. So what they decided to do was, wait, let's wait until the next generation of game consoles to release then. So we're gonna be patient and wait for their next generation and then squash them then. So they scrapped the idea of the Nintendo PlayStation, and they're just like, you know what, screw it. Let's make a much better controller than the Super Nintendo had. So, in fact, I actually have the controllers with me. So, let's see. Okay. So the original... Here we go. The original Nintendo controller looked like this. It was just 2 buttons, start and select, and then the directional buttons. And what's that?
Cassette.
Say that one more time.
It's like a cassette.
It looks like a cassette. Yeah. Yep, it's shaped like a box. So, and that's it. That's all there was. That's it. The end. And then the Super Nintendo. Let's see. Was a major upgrade. It was a lot more comfortable. It was rounded, so it actually like fit in your hand. It had 4 face buttons, like all the current systems do, and it had start and select, and then a D-pad. But also it had shoulder buttons. It was the first one to have shoulder buttons, so it had a right shoulder button and a left shoulder button, and it looked like this. It would lay in your hands like this, and you would play very easily, just like you would with pretty much any normal controller nowadays. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Great.
So that was the Super Nintendo controller. Or yeah, and then let me get the PS1. Okay. So, Sony was developing a huge next leap. So, what the Nintendo Entertainment System was an 8-bit system. Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo were 16-bit systems. Sony was getting ready for the next generation, so they wanted to do a 32-bit system. And that was just powerful enough to start having like 3D games. So so it wasn't like 2D side scrollers like Mario anymore. It was or Sega or Sonic. You could actually do like 3D games. So they in a as a competitor, Sega made an additional add-on to the Genesis called the 32X. So it was a 32-bit processor built on top of the 16-bit processor, so they could play CD games in 32 bits. But it was just so bizarre that they kept asking people to buy all these add-ons to slap onto their Genesis that it just seemed really weird. So very few people bought this because Sega would then announce, oh, but wait, we have another system coming out soon. So buying the 32X is like pointless. And like, then why did you even make it? Like, you threw away our money. Like, you said that 32X would be the future, and then it's not. So it's just a scam. Hey, Soren, how's it going? So so people were starting to get a little restless with Sega. Okay, so let me show you guys the upgrade from the Super Nintendo. So Super Nintendo was the most popular system going into the 5th generation of consoles. Just sitting outside, nice. So this was Sony's upgrade. So this was the controller that they had for the PlayStation. They were just going to copy, They're just going to copy Nintendo. This was the controller, and then they upgraded to this controller. Do you guys notice any big differences? Are you able to see this, Starry?
Yes, that is why I am ooh and ah.
Ooh, yes. So the controller has actual handles you can grab onto. What? No way. So comfortable. And Sony then added, instead of just the left and right, they also added left and right too. So R1 and R2. And L1 and L2 were introduced. And then you had the 4 face buttons, and then start and select, and then the D-pad. So this was the controller for the Nintendo. Oh my gosh, this was the controller for the PlayStation. So, Deaf Studies and Culture and Marine Science, nice. So that was the controller for the PlayStation. And then, but they knew that they would not sell PlayStations unless they had absolutely killer games. So Sony, you love marine science, nice. So Sony scouted around to try to buy some companies that were making really good games for the Super Nintendo, and the 3DO was another competitor. And the Atari Jaguar, which was their competitor to the PlayStation, and that was their worst system, and then that was the last Atari system. Yeah, but anyways, so that was Sony's mission, was to buy up a bunch of companies. One of them that they bought was this little developer known as Naughty Dog. Have you guys heard of Naughty Dog before? It sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar.
Soren, do you know anything about Naughty Dog? Eek, I have. Sweets. So, there's actually a playlist on my main channel called All Naughty Dog Games. Naughty Dog became the Pixar of gaming. So, Sony bought them, and the first game that they made for the PlayStation was known as Crash Bandicoots. And it was amazing. It was a fully 3D game, only the best equals Naughty Dog, yes. It was a fully 3D game, super fun, really easy to get into, and they were definitely a competitor to Nintendo. Sony would make commercials of Crash Bandicoot, or I should say, a guy dressed in a Crash Bandicoot suit, driving up to the real Nintendo headquarters in Japan, mocking them outside of their business with a megaphone, and just mocking Mario. These are real commercials that have happened, and it's pretty funny. They're like, you guys don't have 3D, you're just playing 2D games. Like, oh, you guys suck. And so they're just absolutely mocking them. Sega at the time was getting ready for their next generation system. So, again, to remind everybody, we're now in the 5th generation of consoles. And this is in 1995. This happened. So, Sega realizes that the system that they had prepared for to compete with the PlayStation was actually vastly underpowered. So what they decided to do at the last second was, instead of putting the entire system onto one processor unit, like the PlayStation has and all other video game consoles has, the Sega Saturn is what it was called. They went with their initial plan of their main processor, but they just put 2 on the same motherboard. I'm not a game developer, but from my understanding, the problem is that you only really can develop a game on one processor at a time. So they were asking developers to make games that half of the game used one processor, and then they wanted the other half of the game to use the other processor simultaneously, and then coordinate the game to work together so that it would all come together and work to become one game. For developers, apparently that was a really big ask for them to learn such a bizarre architecture for a game that a lot of game companies decided to just not make games for the Sega Saturn because of how bizarre of an architecture they went with to compete with the PlayStation. What are Starry's thoughts on this so far?
Oh, I love the fucking beef between wow, between Sony and Nintendo. That's fucking funny, and I can imagine some of the commercials that you just described being like aired as Super Bowl commercials and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they were funny.
How the basic.
What'd you say?
I was just gonna say I love how the basic evolution of video games happened through spite.
Yeah, a lot of it. A lot of it is through spite.
That sounds pretty human.
Yes. So, let's see. Okay, so PlayStation absolutely crushing it. They are selling more units than they even knew what to do with. They did not expect themselves to be this popular. The big advantage that PlayStation had was that unlike Nintendo, that rationed their game cartridges to developers, Sony let anybody develop a game for their system. They didn't care. And the thing that kind of held in check by then is that there were magazines for video games, and there were press conferences for video games by this point. While they were on the smaller side, they existed. So people that were interested in buying games, they actually had a platform to check whether the game was good or not. So Nintendo's old solution of rationing game chips for their NES and SNES wasn't really necessary anymore. But they were still doing it, which really, really pissed off game developers. And Sega was not doing themselves any favors. So Nintendo wanted to combat the PlayStation, and because PlayStation had the rights to their CD add-on for a while, Nintendo actually couldn't make a CD system for their 5th gen console. So Nintendo went with cartridges again, which for the 5th generation was a problem because you can only fit so much data onto a cartridge. And so it was really restrictive for game developers. But they made their system twice as powerful as the PlayStation. So you know what they called it?
What?
The Nintendo 64.
Okay.
Because it was a 64-bit system.
So creative.
Makes sense? Okay, now it makes sense. So yeah, that was Nintendo's 3rd system. And while it was very, very powerful, it couldn't fit that big of games on it. So Sony left Nintendo in the dust, and Sony absolutely won the gaming generation. The PlayStation went on to become the best-selling system ever at that point, with over 100 million units sold. And no gaming system got close to that. I believe the Nintendo 64, which was its 2nd main competitor, sat at, I think it was 30 million. And PlayStation had 100 million. So over 3 times as many PlayStation sold.
Holy crap.
Yes. So very, very much many PlayStations. There, go ahead.
Right?
Sorry, your audio cut out there a little bit. What'd you say?
PS1?
Yeah, PS1. All I heard was just PS1.
Yeah, I was just asking if it was the PS1.
Yeah, PS1.
Fun.
Fun. All right, and then Sega wanted to combat this. They knew that one advantage that the PlayStation had was that it released a year before the Nintendo 64 did, and so they had a whole year head start to get people to buy their new system before people had a chance to buy Nintendo's next system. And people didn't want to buy a system twice, so they just kept their PlayStations. And because their friends had PlayStations, that made them want to get PlayStations because they would be able to share the same games.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this became very heated competition to get into people's homes as fast as possible, to control what systems other people got, because most people got systems based off of what their friends had. So Sega knew this, and they knew they screwed up big time with the Sega Saturn. So they wanted to make things right, and they set out to make a system way better than the PlayStation. And they called it the Sega Dreamcast. This would be the first system in the 6th generation of consoles. This system would come out on September 9th, 1999. And it was a huge hit. One other thing I should mention. The Sony Playstation, along with Sony's ability of amazing music, was also a CD player. So it was the first system to not only play games, but also listen to music. That was a big deal for the PlayStation, because everyone in the 90s had a shit ton of CDs. And the fact they can listen to it on their television was crazy. I thought it was so cool. So anyways, and F30 Mapping says, hi, hey F30, how's it going? Welcome. We're talking about video games. But F30, I'm not sure if I've seen you in here before. Are you a returning subscriber or are you a new subscriber? Welcome. So, Sega Dreamcast comes out. It is much easier to develop for. It's a really cool system, and uses discs, is super powerful. It's like, I think it was like 6 times as powerful as the original PlayStation. So really big competitor. And then, so it was doing really well until Sony announced that they would be making a successor to the PlayStation, called, of course, the PlayStation 2. And the thing that would make this a really, really, really big deal was that the PlayStation 2 would be able to play all of your PlayStation 1 games. So all you needed was a PS2, and that's all you needed to have for all your PS1 games and all your PS2 games. And they said that would be coming out in the year 2000. So in anticipation for that, everyone dropped their Sega Dreamcast, and that was Sega's really last chance to be penetrated by the market. Oh, another big thing that the Sega Dreamcast did really well, it was like the first system to actually have online gaming in 1999. So that was a big deal. And in order to get that to work, Sega went to Microsoft to develop their online services so they could play games online. So it actually ran a version of Windows. So you can actually go online with it. It had an online browser and everything. It was really interesting. Where were they going with it? What did you say?
Said I was nodding my head.
Nodding
like,
your
wait.
head.
He gets...
Oof. So, yeah, so that was Sega's last chance. They spent all the rest of their money to develop the Dreamcast, and when it didn't do well, they fell apart completely. And so they announced shortly afterwards that they would no longer be making video game consoles, and they will just be making games for Nintendo and PlayStation. Sega quit. Well, more like they didn't want to, but they had to stop. So that was the end of Sega, and then the PlayStation 2 came out, and not only did it play all PS1 games, all PS2 games, it would continue to play all of your CDs, but it was also a DVD player.
Ooh.
And in the year 2000, DVD players were being sold for like right around $800 to $1,000 per DVD player. And the PlayStation only cost $300. So the PlayStation 2 was the cheapest DVD player that you could buy. So everyone bought a PlayStation 2. Everyone and their mother had a PlayStation 2. PlayStation 2 would go on to become the best-selling system of all time. No system has ever beaten it. They finished off with 155 million PlayStation 2 sold. More than passing the original PlayStation by 50%, over 50%.
God damn.
Mm-hmm. The PlayStation 2 is capable of online play as well. Not very good, but it was capable of it. And it was great. So, let's see. Where was I going? Oh, yeah. So, Nintendo needed to combat this, and Nintendo's, I think, yeah, whatever document was holding them back from being able to get the CD technology that ran out, and so they were able to make their next generation use CDs. So then Nintendo made the Nintendo Gamecube as a competitor to the PlayStation 2, and it would use CDs. However, they wanted to prevent piracy on the Nintendo Gamecube. And so what they did was they made the discs really small. Like, really small. So much so that game developers had a really huge problem trying to fit the games onto these discs. So it had the same problem as the N64. Nintendo didn't learn their lesson. The same thing happened where very little games were able to come to the GameCube because they couldn't fit on the freaking discs because Nintendo was stupid. They were concerned about piracy, but then couldn't sell games because they were so hard to get a hold of. And then Microsoft was inspired by the online success of the Dreamcast that they're like, wait a minute, we're great at online stuff. We can make a system that is so online friendly that the main big selling point would be the online functionality. And so they came up with a code name for their system. They said they made a huge announcement in the year 2000. We're going to make a video game console, and it's going to be called Code Name Xbox. We'll come up with a better name later. And spoiler alert, they did not come up with a better name later. So, anyways, Xbox comes out in the year 2001. A lot of the people that worked on Sega systems went on to work on the Xbox system. And so Xbox is kind of like the spiritual successor of Sega, if that makes sense. Hope that makes sense. I'm sorry. Hello.
Said uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Okay, great. Okay. Let's see. So, an Xbox delivered on its promise to have great online games, and so that was a big deal. But no system could beat what PlayStation 2 was doing. So PlayStation 2 absolutely dominated the market. GameCube didn't do very well either, and Sony was really on their high horse. Microsoft knew that if they were going to start to compete with the likes of PlayStation, they had to get ready for the next generation faster than they were. So they kind of decided, all right, Xbox not so great, so let's focus on the next system. And they started to work on the Xbox 360 really early. Aiden Kennedy says, hi, hey, Aiden, how's it going? So, Microsoft is working on the Xbox 360. And PlayStation is still focusing on the PlayStation 2. And Nintendo is still trying to sell their GameCube, which had a handle on it for some reason. Do you guys know that? All GameCubes had like a lunchbox handle on the back of the system. Why?
It's fucking cute.
Yeah, but like you're supposed to bring it with you? And apparently Nintendo said yes. That was the GameCube was like the first iteration of the Switch. The idea that you can just pick up the system and bring it with you was that it was so portable. Okay, sure. I guess. I don't know. I wouldn't. I'd be very hesitant to call the GameCube portable, but Nintendo thought so. Anyways, Microsoft knew that Sony was aiming for a 2006 release of the PlayStation 3. So they wanted to release in 2005. So Microsoft developed the Xbox 360 as fast as they possibly could, and they were reluctant to do many tests on it because they just wanted to get out very fast. And so they hardly tested the Xbox 360, and they indeed released in 2005. So a year before the next generation was supposed to start. So this is, now we're talking about the 6th generation of consoles.
Holy crap.
What?
What's that? Like, now we're talking about the 6th generation of consoles.
Mm-hmm.
2005? Okay.
What are your thoughts so far on this whole story?
Huh.
Huh.
I don't know. I like the lunchbox feature. Again, it makes me think of that, like, take us everywhere you go so we can brainwash you.
Exactly. That's what Nintendo wanted you to do. They were already planting the seed. So Xbox 360 releases a year early. And it is so much more powerful than the PlayStation 2. It's like It's like 20 times as powerful as the PlayStation 2. Absolutely no comparison. It does full-on high-definition graphics before HD TVs were even really a thing. And it had a bunch of online connectivity, and it even had wireless controllers. Xbox 360 was a big deal. And so Sony knew that they needed to compete big time. So they announced before the Xbox 360 came out that the PlayStation 3 was going to be twice as powerful as the 360. And it was going to be. At the same time, Sony started to have this energy to them that they thought they were like on top of the world, and nobody can stop them. So they really didn't feel like Xbox 360 was a threat whatsoever, which couldn't be further than the truth. The PlayStation 2, Sony was also concerned about was it piracy or something? Sony wanted to make sure that it would be harder for game developers to switch to other platforms because PS2 had such a dominance. So they made the PlayStation 2's architecture a little bit challenging, so that when they made a game for PlayStation 2, it would be extremely difficult to port the code over to a Xbox or to a PC or to a Gamecube, so that that game would indirectly become exclusive to the PlayStation because the developer wouldn't have the resources to develop the game twice for two different systems. Does that make sense? So this was selfish on PlayStation's part. But it worked out for them in the end because PlayStation 2 indirectly had a lot of exclusives because developers could only afford to make games for one system, and they went with the PS2 because it was the best-selling system. So it just made sense. So the PlayStation 3, Sony decided, all right, we're going to make a processor that is unbelievably powerful. It's going to be a supercomputer that is also going to be the size of your thumbnail. It is going to be unmatched in the entire industry. Nix says, is this a joinable? Yes, this is a joinable, Nix, absolutely. And we have many realms for you to join. But Nix, I'm not sure I've seen you in here before. Are you a returning subscriber or are you a new subscriber? Welcome. So, let's see. So, Sony wanted to make a processor that was not only perfect for, not only great for game development, but also is a supercomputer that can go into phones, computers, cars, laptops, everything. They wanted to not just make it for the PlayStation, they want to make it for so many other things as well. And they partnered with IBM and Toshiba to develop the processor known as the Cell Broadband Engine, or in short, the Cell processor. The Cell processor absolutely blew away any computer at the time. No computer can do anything as close to what the PlayStation 3 could do. The PlayStation was running the Cell processor. It had also made the PlayStation 3 incredibly expensive to make because it had this proprietary processor. I'm a new subscriber. Is this a friendly SMP or what exactly is it? We do have friendly realms, Nix, but the first one that you get invited to is Anarchy. But if you are friendly, then we do eventually invite you to other realms. So yes, you can do that. There is a whole video on this channel that talks about how exactly you can get invited to all the realms. So go ahead and watch that for for a full description. But Nix is a new subscriber, so Nix, welcome to the sub club. As you guys know, whenever we get a new subscriber, with their permission of course, I suck their toes. That's right. It sounds a little bit something like this. So welcome, my friend. Welcome. Hope you enjoy it here. Alright, so, Nix, in order to get the code to our most popular realm, known as Minecraft Hell, all you gotta do is simply just send me a screenshot of you being subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on. That's all you gotta do. It's really easy. You can send that screenshot to my Twitter, and my Twitter is linked in the description. That's all you gotta do. And if you don't have a Twitter, then you make one. Then you make one.
Did you lose your horse?
Did I lose my horse? I don't know. Did I? Is it gone?
No, your white one is still tied up, but I was looking for my horse because asshole decided to run off.
Oh.
But a brown one with a diamond thingy.
Oh, I don't know where your horse went.
Look, right here, right here. Is this your horse?
This is my horse!
Yay!
Yay!
Merry.
Thank you. No, this is not my horse.
What do you
Wait
mean
a
it's not your horse?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You found my original horse! I lost this guy years ago! Where did you find him?
Over there by the swamp area.
Oh my god! I missed you so much! Don't you ever leave me again! Oh my god! He was so lost. Okay, thank you.
See?
Toasted Cat, a man and his horse has been reunited again. Yes. Hey, Bryce. Hey, Toasted Cat. How's it going? Thanks for being a Toasted Cat. You're the best Toasted Cat I could ever ask for. Alright, what am I talking about? Sony and crap. Right. So, alright, so Sony develops the Cell Broadband Engine. And it is a supercomputer. And basically, I'll try to sum this up. Wait, how do I put a lead on a horse?
Regular L2.
Every time I hit it, I get on the horse. I don't want to get on the horse. I want to...
What the fuck?
I want to lead it. What the fuck is going on? Why can't I lead the horse? What the fuck? Minecraft! Why do you fucking glitch shit like this? Now I can't lead him? What the fuck's the problem? Lead the fence first. I can't. Look, I'm trying. What the fuck? Okay, well then. I need to trap him somewhere. Okay, he's trapped in the Zim house. Unless he goes into the nether. And then he'll be in the nether. Let's see. Let's see if I could stop that from happening.
Ooh, I found a pink sheep.
Yee.
Oh, fucker.
Okay, now the horse cannot get in the nether. Okay. Horse is good. We're all good. Sounds good. Alright, so horse trapped in here. So weird. I also, speaking of Zim, I recently watched Into the Florpus. Nice. That is such a good movie. I think it's called Enter the Florpus, actually. All right, so. Yeah, so Cell supercomputer, and oh yeah. So basically, to describe how it works, Xbox 360 also made a difficult processor, kind of like the Sega Saturn did. So the what you call it? The Xbox 360 had one main big processor, but then it also had like 3 other processors that were relatively powerful that you could offload like some processing power to, and then that would be you can like try to synchronize that with the main processor. So it was also kind of weird, but like people could work with it. If a developer didn't want to deal with that, then they could just use the Xbox 360's like big processor to just process the game, and they didn't even bother with the extra power that it had. Does that make any sense?
Could you explain that last part a bit again about the power?
Yeah. So basically, it's easiest to develop your game just using one processor, because you only have to make it for one thing. However, Xbox decided to make one big main processor for the 360, and then 3 smaller ones that were optional for developers to use.
Okay.
Okay. So many developers just chose not to use the 3 smaller ones because the main one was plenty. And yeah, so that's basically how stuff worked on the 360. Now, this also made development for games for the 360 exclusive, because just like it was for the PS2, a game publisher would rather just publish on the best-selling system, and then instead of remaking the game for another system, they would rather just not. So many games indirectly became exclusive to the Xbox 360 because the Xbox 360 was kind of difficult to develop for. This was also the reason that the PlayStation 2 had indirect exclusives. Sony did plan this with the PlayStation 3 because the Cell processor was way more alien than even the 360. So the PlayStation 3 has one main processor like the 360 has, except it's extremely underpowered. The PlayStation 3 has a bunch of synchronized processors. So instead of the 360 that had 3 optional processors, the PlayStation 3 had 8 mandatory processors that the developers had to develop all their games on. And so they would tell the developers, all right, you have one whole processor for sound, you have one whole processor for resolution, you had one whole processor for like frame rate, you had one whole processor for AI, you had one whole processor for like menus, you had one whole processor for stuff like that. So it was just like crazy that they were asking all the game developers to split up the game into all these different AI sections, and it was so hard for game developers to make any games for the PlayStation 3 because they had to just split up the game into just a bunch of different sections and then had to try to program the game to work in synchronization with the 8 different processors, plus the one processor that like was the brains of it that connected all of them together. Does that sound complicated? Does that make any sense what I just said?
I guess. Not really.
Not really? Okay, well it sounds complicated, right?
Yes.
Alright, so point is that game developers hated it. They couldn't stand how difficult it was. And because of this, games looked... even though the PlayStation 3 had twice as much power as the 360, games would look not as good on the PS3 in comparison because people didn't know how to fully utilize the cell processor and use all these different processes because Sony made a really difficult system to work with. So, so many developers just said, screw it, I'm just going to make a game for the 360 and then screw the PS3 version. So, the PlayStation 3 had very little games at launch. And then on top of that, the PlayStation 3 demanded that instead of using DVDs for their games, they used Blu-ray discs, which at the time was another alien architecture that no one knew how to make games for. So, so all the games had to be on Blu-ray discs. And the PlayStation 3 shipped with a Blu-ray player inside. And Blu-ray players were going anywhere from like $1,000 to like $2,000. And so the PlayStation 3 had to be cheaper than that, so that they also, just like the PS2, they wanted to be the cheapest Blu-ray player on the market. So when it was all said and done, all of the power that was inside of the PS3, along with the Blu-ray player, ended up costing Sony $805 to manufacture every single one. And they would sell the PlayStation 3 for $600. So for every PS3 sold meant a $205 loss.
Madam, 200 and what?
205.
Oh, okay.
So every PS3 sold, they'd lost $205. It cost them $805 to manufacture, and they sold it for $600. And even then, that was still too much money to ask a customer to pay for. People were like, $600? Like, what the hell? No, I'm going to pay for a 360 for half the price.
Mm-hmm.
And so nobody wanted to buy a PlayStation 3. Except for me, because I'm insane. So I bought a PS3 right when it came out for $600. But nobody else wanted to. So this was a deal breaker for a lot of people. So the PlayStation 3 also was able to play all PS1, 2, and 3 games. No problem. So how they accomplished this is they just put a PS2 processor inside of the PS3. Is basically how they achieved it. Sony realized quickly if they were to compete with the 360, which is absolutely dominating them, they would have to start taking things out of the system to lower the cost. So the first thing they decided to take out was the PS2 built inside of it. So that's why only the very first PS3s that came out can play PS2 games.
Nodding my head. Uh-huh.
Yes. Now it all makes sense. So they... What?
coming together. I don't know who says that.
Now it's all coming together. So they took that out, and they lowered the amount of USB ports from 4 to just 2. They also took out all the memory card readers that were inside of it. They took out a lot of stuff in the PS3 to lower the cost. And they were able to get it down basically by $100. And then they made a cheaper model with a very, very small hard drive that would sell for it would sell for $400. Whereas the 360 would have two models. It would have a high-end version that was also $400, and it had a lower-end version that was $300. And yeah, so Sony was still trying to sell a $500 system with the low-end model of $400. So still not very successful. So in order to combat this, Sony went to their game developers and they're like, all right, all hands on deck. The only way we're going to make PlayStation 3 successful is to make the best games ever made. And so they went to Naughty Dog, they went to Insomniac, they went to all these developers to have them make really great games. And they had to teach them all how to use the cell processor. So Naughty Dog developed Uncharted and The Last of Us not Insomniac. Sucker Punch developed Infamous. What else was in the big game on PS3? Oh, yeah. Santa Monica did God of War. There are a lot of really good games that developed in PlayStation 3 that were exclusive. And that is what brought the PlayStation 3 back. And whereas Xbox was kind of running out of original ideas, they only really had Halo and Gears of War and Forza 5. And that's a racing game. And that's it. They only really had 3 main exclusives. And they just kept releasing sequels for those. And people kind of just got tired of them. And so less and less and less people were interested in getting a 360. But the 360 had sold so much by that point that Microsoft already kind of decided they won in their own heads. When in actuality, the thing that was beating both of them was the Nintendo Wii. Was absolutely kicking PS3 and Xbox 360's ass. Because everyone bought it for the Wii Sports and the motion control stuff. And Nintendo kept costs really, really, really far down. Normally, up until this point, every gaming generation had a huge hardware upgrade to compete with each other. The PS3 and 360 were super huge supercomputers. And Nintendo was like, nah, we're not even going to try at all. In fact, we're just going to put the Gamecube processor into our next generation system and not even upgrade the processing power at all. And then they just added motion controls. And that, my friends, is the Wii. The Wii is literally just a GameCube with motion controllers. That's it.
Nice, Dad.
Nice. Good job, Nintendo. So no Nintendo Wii games were in HD, and that made people pretty upset because they're like, why am I buying this system with my HD TV when I can't play any HD games on it? What the heck, Nintendo? They finally switched to full discs, but Nintendo always does something fucking stupid, and they didn't upgrade the processing power at all. So because of this, games were developed for 360 and PS3 that were really high-end HD games, but they wouldn't run on the Wii because the Wii was too underpowered to run it. So they still had the same fucking problem. Nintendo didn't learn their lesson.
I love that. Mainly, I love hearing you rage. It's fucking funny.
Yay. I appreciate it. Yeah, Nintendo didn't learn fucking shit. They did it again. They sold a lot of systems, but not a lot of games. Which is the main reason that you need to sell the systems. Because the systems themselves don't earn very much money. PlayStation sold their PS3 at a $200 loss. They make all the money back on the games. So, when it was all said and done, the 6th generation of game consoles ended with the PS3 and 360 being neck and neck in sales. And neck and neck as in the Xbox 360 sold 86 million systems, and the PlayStation 3 sold 87. So the PlayStation 3 was, in fact, able to come back. But just barely.
Holy crap, that... Fuck Daddy Donnie and his fucking sports. That is more fucking exciting.
I think so, too! That number's really crazy. So, now we're entering the year 2013. Where the... Or, excuse me. No. The 6th generation was PS2 and Xbox and Gamecube. The 7th generation was 360, Wii, and Xbox 360. So, now entering 2013, we're talking about the 8th generation of consoles.
Ooh.
Nintendo knew that they would not be able to compete with the power of the PS3 and 360, so a year prior, in 2012, Nintendo decided to release the Wii U. The Wii U was a really upgraded, powerful system. It was twice as powerful as a PlayStation 3. So this was really big deal. And it would be Nintendo's very first HD system. And it had a real controller, not a motion controller. And so people actually thought, like, oh wow, like they're really going at it this time. And they called it the Wii U. And Nintendo's gimmick, because they always have to have something, is that the controller had a giant tablet on it. So you're holding a giant tablet as your controller. Okay, fine. Cool. Nintendo marketed it so badly, their commercials were all like, yeah, this is the Wii U, and they just showed the gamepad. They showed the tablet in the controller. But they never actually stated to their audience that this was a next generation system. As far as viewers of the commercials were concerned, they thought that the Wii U was an accessory to the Wii instead of a next generation system. And nobody wanted to buy a $300 accessory for their Wii. And so they're like, oh, well, we'll just skip the Wii U. So a lot of people didn't buy the Wii U because they didn't understand what it was. And the Wii U to this day is Nintendo's worst selling system of all time. It sold only 12 million units.
Ow.
Really, 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 really bad. What a horrible name.
Wii U. Sounds like the fucking ambulance thing. Wii U.
Wii U, Wii U. Yep, so That was the Wii U. And it was kind of already dead from the gate. And so in 2013, instead of Xbox or Sony getting ahead of each other, they released at the same time. They announced their newest systems. And there were rumors going around going into this year, because I remember I was graduating from high school this year in 2013, that that PlayStation and Xbox wanted to cut down on load times. So instead of loading a disc, what they would do is when you put a disc into the system, it would rip all of the memory off of the disc and then just save the disc on the actual system. And so you never had to, like, put your game in again. And so we thought, like, that would be, like, so weird that they would do that. Another big thing that was going on in the industry was people were concerned about the used game market. In the PlayStation 3 era, games went up to $60 per game. Because games are getting really expensive to make. And so when this next generation was coming around, games are going to be even more expensive. The PlayStation 4 would be 10 times as powerful as the PlayStation 3. And so they were going to become astronomically expensive. And anytime somebody bought a used game, that money that customer spent didn't go to the game developer. It would just go to their friend. And so the game developer wouldn't be making any money. So there was a big push to be like, hey, if you're buying a used game, then you're basically stealing, because that money should be going to the game developer, not somebody else.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the push that that game developers were saying, and that that was floating around the industry at that time. So in February of 2013, Sony announces the PlayStation 4. The controller is radically redesigned. There's a touchpad on it, and there's also a camera that comes that the system is connected to, and there's a giant light bar in the controller. I'm playing on a PlayStation 4 right now. Actually, you can't see it in this lighting, but this is a giant light bar because the controller is white, so they blend into each other. But there's a giant light bar on the controller, and it's used so the camera can track it. So let's say, for example, I'm playing a multiplayer game on the couch with friends, and we get up and move to different spots. The camera can track the controllers and automatically rearrange the split screen so it makes sense to everybody. What'd you say?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It can do that. How much that was implemented based off on the developers was very rare, but I do have a game that does that. And I thought that was pretty cool. So, anyways, yeah, that was the that was the main feature. And then Sony also said their main message is, hey, we learned our lesson from the PlayStation 3. We're not going to make the PlayStation 4 hard to develop for. We are literally just going to take PC parts and put it in a box and call it a PlayStation. And that's it. No alien architecture or anything like that. It's going to be the easiest thing to develop for. So anyone that's making an independent game on PC, you can absolutely just easily copy and paste it to the PlayStation 4. It's that easy. And so because of this, PlayStation 4 had a ton of games. Absolutely a ton. Because PlayStation learned that they needed to become game-centric in order to compete with Xbox 360. Xbox on the other hand, was worried about Sony becoming the domination of the living room. And the big thing with the PlayStation 3 that they kept advertising was that it only does everything. Because the PlayStation 3 was a Blu-ray player, it was a DVD player, it was a music player. You can make photo slideshows on it. It saved all of your photos. You had a whole web browser that you could go on the PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 3 can be hooked up to a printer and print shit. The PlayStation 3 can do anything that was out. It could play 3D movies. You can make movies. You can download editing software on it. The PlayStation 3 was absolutely a home computer that you can do anything on. It had streaming services. Netflix was biggest on PlayStation 3. PlayStation 3 was a really big deal. And so Xbox knew that in order for them to be the center of the living room, they need to make a system that would out everything the PlayStation 4. Nick, did you see my messages from earlier? Yeah, did you see my message to you? I already sent you the code. They needed to outperform the PlayStation 4. So Xbox was assuming that the PlayStation 4 was going to be a PlayStation 3 on steroids, and it really wasn't. The PlayStation 4 was not going to be able to play any PlayStation 3 games because it was not going to have the PlayStation 3 cell processor inside of it. It was just going to have PC parts. So PlayStation 4 was just its own system, and that's it. And so the Xbox, what people were calling the Xbox 720, was going to be the next generation to the 360. And so everyone was expecting a big reveal, and they came out and revealed that the next Xbox is going to be called the Xbox One. Which that is probably the worst name of any console that ever came out. It's the third Xbox, but they're calling it the Xbox One.
I don't think they know how to count just PSA.
Yeah, I don't think they know either. So you have Xbox, that's the first one, and then you have Xbox 360, the second one, and then you have Xbox One, the third one. So that name already confused a lot of people because a lot of grandmas that weren't paying attention literally thought that people were asking for an original Xbox for Christmas. And they're like, why would you want that one? That's so weird. And so they're like, well, you should get a 360 instead. It was bad. It was bad. It was just bad marketing, really bad decision. I'm blown away by the decisions that these companies have made. That's probably Xbox One's first problem. After the announcement, or during the announcement, I should say, they really focused on Xbox's ability to connect to your cable television and use voice commands to control it. And so all they did was show television shows and movies and its entertainment features instead of showing any games. And people were confused on why Xbox chose to not talk about games anymore and they chose entertainment. And it was because Xbox was trying to become the PlayStation 3. Where Sony learned that the PlayStation 3 was the wrong approach. They needed to focus on games instead of entertainment power. And so Sony did a great job with that with the PlayStation 4. They just focused on games, and that did very well. And that's pretty much all the PS4 can do, honestly. It's just play games very well, but that's pretty much it. PlayStation 3 is a much more capable system in every other department. It's my favorite system. Is it nighttime yet? Nope. Okay. Um, the big thing that people were worried about is what was going to happen with the used games. So when the Xbox One was announced, people were asking, how is the game thing going to work? Because we heard that rumor about that it would take the game and then just rip it off the disc and then save it to the hard drive. And they asked Xbox, is that true? And they're like, yeah, that is what it's going to do. I'm like, oh, okay. So then will my physical disc be pointless? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, then why would we buy any physical games? And they're like, well, you probably shouldn't.
Good job.
Then why even make physical games? It was really like a head scratcher. And then they quickly realized, wait a minute. If I buy a game, I can't give it to my friend. If I buy a game and it sucks, I cannot resell it because it's locked to my system. So anytime anybody bought a game, they were buying a new copy. So that all the money would be going to the game developers. They would effectively get rid of used games. That's fucked up. So the Xbox would block used games. So here's how it would work. If you put a game disc inside of your Xbox, it would first have to connect to the internet to authorize that you were the first person to ever put this disc inside of your Xbox. It would then rip the disc to your Xbox and then tell online that the game is now on this person's system. If you were to take that disc and go to your friend's house and let them borrow the game, when they would put it in their system, their Xbox would say, "Fuck you, give me money!" And they'd be like, "What? But my friend already bought the game." Like, no. You're trying to play a game that somebody else bought. Fuck you, pay us again. And so they would put in a used game, and the game would ask them for $60 to play it. Starry, isn't that fucked?
It's very fucked.
So the Xbox One blocked used games. And people were so upset at this.
Understandably.
Yeah. This was like the worst reveal event of any game console ever. It just seemed like it was just all bad. They didn't really announce any good exclusives. It was just them talking about how they're going to restrict your games. It was so fucking weird. They wanted to get rid of Game Hub with no used Xbox games. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, they wanted to get rid of services like that. So no used games. This, of course, has a problem with, like, the right of first sale. As in, like, I paid for something, and it is mine. And, like, you cannot take that away from me. It infringes on this. And Xbox went further to say, like, hey, people were asking... They were equating used games to piracy, basically. They were trying to make it seem like the audience was the enemy for trying to play used games. They're like, well, you're basically pirating games by borrowing it from a friend. So it's like really manipulative and fucked up. Right.
Fuck.
And they said, here's how we're gonna help you make sure that you don't accidentally pirate any games. Here's how we're gonna help this situation. Every Xbox One will be forced to come with the Kinect camera sensor with it. You will not be allowed to operate your system unless it recognizes your face as you play it. This United States company wants to have a camera on your face at all times, and it has to be connected to the internet at all times as you use it to authenticate that you are the correct person playing the game. This camera was so advanced that it can monitor your heart rate just by looking at you. There are games in which it does this. And they advertised it as a feature of the system. That, yeah, if you get nervous during a game, we can actually have your character sweat more and it will attract zombies to you the more nervous you are. It's a feature of the game. That was in Dead Rising 3. So for those of you that have it for Xbox One, you have the Kinect. That is a feature of the game. But, well, what if I had a friend over and I want him to try out the game? Can't I just give him the controller? The Kinect camera will view who is holding the controller. The controller has to be in view, and who was holding it. And it would identify somebody else was playing the game, and then it would block the game. It would say, no, you don't own this game. Your friend does. Pay us $60 to continue to play the game that your friend already bought. You're pirating. There were memes saying that Xbox One was literally Hitler. Those were my favorite memes. It was so funny. But so true. What the actual fuck, Microsoft? Like, this is the future of gaming? And it had to be connected online. What about all of the people, like all the military that are overseas that don't have access to internet, that are very loyal to Xbox? What about them? And that was a question that they asked Microsoft, and Microsoft's response was, yeah, you know, we understand that there are people that don't have good access to internet, and luckily we do have a system option for them, and it's called Xbox 360. And the game journalists were like, wait, what? Wait, that's actually your answer? You're saying that if they don't have access to internet, to just buy the last generation console? And they're like, well, I mean, if you truly don't have access to internet, then, you know, Xbox 360 is an offline device. Yeah, that is the solution. And that went down as, like, the worst PR statement that, like, any gaming company has, like, ever made.
Oh my god, way to go.
So, so this system was, yeah, so it was already looking bad. So E3 2013 comes along, the Electronic Entertainment Expo again, and Microsoft has their conference the same day as PlayStation. Microsoft announces a couple new games, they show off the Kinect features and whatnot, and then at the end, they say their price. They're selling the Xbox One for $500. The Xbox One is about 7 times as powerful as a PlayStation 3. Where the PlayStation 4 is 10 times as powerful as a PlayStation 3. So the PlayStation 4 is significantly more powerful than the Xbox One. And so people were expecting the PlayStation 4 to be at least the same price as the Xbox One because it's more powerful. Sony has their press conference, and right before they announce the price, Sony comes out and says, by the way, we want to make sure that gamers have true value and true ownership. So this is why Sony has decided that for the indefinite future, we will continue supporting used games forever. When a customer buys a PS4 disc, they have the rights to use that copy of the game. They could trade in the game at retail, sell it to another person, lend it to a friend, or keep it forever. We will never require PlayStation 4 to check in online periodically. And your PlayStation will not stop working like Xbox does if it hasn't authenticated within 24 hours.
Aww.
And the crowd was absolutely cheering and, like, bouncing off the walls at this announcement. And then, moments later, Andrew House, who was the president of PlayStation at the time, walks up on stage and says, and we will continue to offer the best value on the market. I'm very proud to announce that the PlayStation 4 will be available for $399. And the room absolutely exploded.
It literally, I fucking swear to God, I just heard you say, and they lived happily ever after.
And they
That
lived
is
happily ever after at the end. So the PlayStation 4 had games that looked better on it. They didn't have all this restrictive bullshit. And they sold it for $100 less than the Xbox. There was absolutely no competition. So the PlayStation 4 wiped the room. And Xbox stood by their stance that they were making the right decision. When pre-orders went up, they then saw the numbers of how many people were going to buy an Xbox. And they were not selling at all. Yeah, I love PS4. I have a day one that's I got on launch, and I got a PS4 Pro. Nice, Nix. Nice. So, Xbox noticing that they were not going to sell any Xboxes. And so, a couple months before launch, they came out and said, okay, we were wrong. We're sorry. We're going to do what PlayStation's doing, and we're going to allow you to have used games. And but they said all of your current Xboxes are designed to have this DRM, is the word for digital rights management, which basically means the anti-used games thing. So they're like, the current Xboxes have all these DRM policies built inside of it. So your Xbox is going to be required to have a day one patch to update all of this shit out of it, and then you'll be able to use your Xbox. But all Xboxes will be shipping with the DRM stuff in place. So the damage had already been done. Xbox's reputation was destroyed, and absolutely no one could trust them. And I've still yet to trust them. Because that was like the most evil thing I've ever seen any company do. What do you think, Starry?
I think they got what they deserved, and I think it's fucking funny that afterwards you're like, oh yeah, by the way, you're getting this fucking devil turd in the mail. We're gonna give you an update, and that's what you need to take out the crappiness. I don't know, kind of funny.
Saif places, hello, hey Saif, how's it going? Yeah, so what really concerned me was that all Xboxes, even to this day, still have all of that DRM stuff built inside of it. It's just patched out to not work. So, at any point, they could just be like, oh, you know what? We decided to turn all that back on again. And all of them can easily just do that. So I absolutely do not trust Microsoft. Yeah, that absolutely stained their company for a long time. Did you know all that?
I did not know all that.
Isn't that crazy?
It's fucking crazy.
I remember that like it was yesterday. It was as I was graduating from high school and everyone was talking about it. They're like, what the fuck, Xbox? People were so upset.
Yay, I have a...
Go ahead.
It.
What?
I'm saying, yay, I have a friend who lived through it. Old person joke.
Yay, old people. Yeah, all my friends, they all unanimously agreed to skip Xbox and get a PlayStation. Even with Xbox's bullshit, I'm pretty convinced that the Republicans and Xbox are like in like butt chother cahoots with each other, because there were a bunch of conservative people, because Xbox is very, very American, and Lord knows that conservatives are very prideful of being American. That even with all the DRM shit, they were still like, nah, Xbox is the greatest ever. You just don't understand. And it was like politics back then.
Jesus.
Those people were still willing to buy Xboxes. They were willing to take all the bullshit that Xbox was saying up the ass and just let themselves get fucked. And the gaming generation of that one is pretty much over. They are still making PS4s, but I'm pretty sure Xbox Ones are discontinued now. Yeah, if anything, they might be selling just like some leftover stock, but I think they're pretty much done. So, yeah, when it was all said and done, I don't know, can you Google how many Xbox Ones have been sold?
51 million consoles.
51 million. Okay, so not like really bad, but like it's really not great. Bryce, are you playing by yourself because no one is online in Minecraft Hell? You are, and people will join soon. So stick around, and then people will join. But I'm playing with my friend Starry in this world.
Guesses.
Yay! And then, oh yeah, can you look up how many PlayStation 4s have been sold?
See.
Alright, so Xbox is 51 million.
um, 117.2 million.
There you go. So it beat PS1 numbers and was almost approaching PS2 numbers. It was so bad that since then Xbox they do have a new system, but they decided to, instead of have Xbox be games that were just for whatchamacallit? Oh my gosh, my Xbox turned on. Xbox. I think I have to sign in first. Xbox, sign in. Xbox, turn off. Oh, it listened to me that time. Okay.
Clap off.
All right, so, what was I saying?
They were approaching PS2 numbers.
Yeah. So Xbox decided to not release exclusive games. They decided to, almost like Sega did, they started to release games for PC and phones and whatnot instead of just Xbox. And there's absolutely no exclusives on Xbox at all. There's literally no reason to get an Xbox besides the, I guess, the novelty of having a console and collecting it. So they turned Xbox into a game streaming service. So I think it's like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Xbox Game Pass is 100 no, what is it? I think it's like $30 a month and you get access to like 75 games or something like that. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but Xbox has decided to turn itself into a game service more than a console. Whereas PlayStation is definitely competing as a console. So PS5s are selling through the roof. And there's not too much story with PS5. It's just, it plays all PS4 games. It's pretty similarly powered as the Xbox Series X, which is the name of the new system. It's still not the greatest name. Xbox Series X. What was I saying?
Xbox Series X, stupid name.
Yeah. Tis is.
Tis is.
Xbox made two variants of their new system. There's the Xbox Series X, which is very powerful as the PlayStation 5, basically. And then there's the Xbox Series S, which is a significantly less powerful system. That is very questionable to have two different powered systems. Normally, any variations are the same power, but they just have like different features there or not. But no, with this one, the Xbox Series S is significantly less powerful than the Xbox Series X. The Xbox Series S does not have a disk drive because they want you to just buy digital games. The Xbox Series X sells for $500 and the Xbox Series S sells for $300. So really, 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 really cheap. On the PlayStation side of things, and I don't like this either. PlayStation does have two models of the PS5. One has a disc drive and one doesn't. Otherwise, they're exactly the same. But the fact that one doesn't have a disc drive is like really concerning to me. Because now that means, for the first time ever, if I go to a friend's house with a PS5 game, and I go over, I'm like, hey, let's play this game, and then they have a digital edition, then I'm like, oh, well, now we can't play. Because you have the wrong one. And Sony and Microsoft have full control over how much you spend on their stores. And they do not discount the games. Very, very, very rare. Also, the Nintendo Wii U sold so badly that instead of waiting to 2020 to release the next generation system, Nintendo decided to do it 3 years early. Which has never happened that early. So, the Nintendo Switch is a 9th generation console, technically. It's just very bizarre when it came out. It came out in 2017, so like kind of right in the middle of a generation. So people honestly are not quite sure where to put it. Like, should it be considered an 8th generation console or a 9th generation console? Right now we're kind of going with 9th, but it's just like really, really early. It's really weird.
Hello?
Hello.
I heard, I think, one tiny last word, but I'm not sure I heard it right.
What did you hear?
I'm not even sure.
What did you hear before that?
What did I hear before that? Hold on, now I can't think because I'm under pressure. Game, stupid decision, people. Oh, the release of the thingy, of the Nintendo Switch, and how it was weird that it was released like the whole 3 years earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really weird. So people don't know if Nintendo Switch should be considered an 8th generation console or a 9th generation console. I think right now we're leaning towards it being a 9th, but it just released 3 years early. So we'll see.
Okay.
If Nintendo releases a new Switch like next year, then I guess that one will be considered the 9th generation one, and then the Switch would be considered like an 8.5 generation, which again, it's so weird. The Switch is about twice as powerful as a Wii U, and the fact that it can fit in your pocket is mind-blowing.
It's pretty cool.
Yes. And that was Switch's gimmick, was that it's a handheld system and a console system all at once. And like that's a good gimmick to have. I wouldn't even call that a gimmick. I think that's really awesome. But the thing that people are afraid of is that for their next generation, Switch is going to pull some stupid bullshit, like make the controllers only work if you have them like between your butt cheeks or something. Like Nintendo always just pulls something fucking stupid just to be different, and we don't know what it's going to be yet. So I really hope they don't do something stupid. But that, ladies and gentlemen, was the complete brief history of the entire gaming industry.
Craps. It all happened out of spite.
And it was all about Kratos seeking revenge.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Wowzers. And the stupid decisions made along the way.
Yes. What are your favorite parts of the story, or what stood out to you the most, or the things that surprised you?
The thing about the spite? Oh, man.
Oh, how Sony Playstation was created?
Yeah. And how the fucking basic mic drop event that Nintendo pulled. Holy crap. The lunchbox idea. Oh my god, the poor just marketing thing for the Wii U. Let's see.
Yeah, that was so bad.
Nintendo's whole 1984 thing. Their stupid ass decisions. Xbox. And no sales on that because that was just stupid.
I don't know. I think for all the shit Nintendo pulled, I still think Xbox's decision was the worst one of all. That absolutely trumps all of Nintendo's stupid bullshit in comparison. What Xbox did was just a PR nightmare.
Holy crap. All that shit's fucking funny.
Mm. And Atari and Sega died.
I heard Atari and something died.
Sega.
Deaths. Holy crap.
So that's why it's very important to have the big three companies all be successful, because otherwise one of them gets too much power and then they make some stupid bullshit decisions. They all made stupid bullshit decisions, like Sony making the cell processor, Nintendo being Nintendo, Xbox with the used game shit. Like, they all pulled stupid bullshit. I think Sony was the least by far, but gosh.
Yes, having
So-
three is a great basis for democracy. Someone should take note for that.
Interesting. They kind of keep each other in check. It's kind of like a balance, like checks and balances.
Yeah, exactly. And you could veto one another. That should be a thing that games should incorporate too. Be like, slap each other with the face and be like, no, you stupid ass moron. What the hell are you doing?
The thing that's been concerning a lot of people lately is that Microsoft has been buying up a bunch of third-party developers and making them exclusive for Xbox. So that's been really concerning. Like, Bethesda? So all of Skyrim is now going to be exclusive to Xbox. Microsoft is currently trying to buy Activision, which is the current owners of Crash Bandicoot and Spyro and Call of Duty. And so they're trying to make that exclusive to Xbox, which would be a monopoly. United States, that would be a monopoly. That would be a monopoly on the shooter market. Because Xbox has Halo, which is already exclusive. And then there is Call of Duty, which is on everything. But they want to take Call of Duty and make it only on Xbox. That'd be a monopoly. And since that was pointed out as being a monopoly, Xbox said, "Oh, well, we won't let it be only on Xbox. We'll make sure we'll release on other platforms." Like, really? Okay. Okay. Sure. We'll believe that. Who knows? Maybe they will put on other platforms. I don't know how long they would do that, but I don't know. It just seems sketch as fuck.
I learned so much. Thank yous.
My pleasure. Was it actually interesting? Because I feel like I just go on rants about nonsense.
No, it actually was. Fuck. Bonus content. Just now I learned the actual fucking definition of monopoly when I did an A push. It didn't make sense back then. Now it makes sense.
It just now makes sense?
It just now makes sense.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad I was able to teach you what monopolies are.
That's the exact fucking, what are they called? Metaphor that I needed. A shooter game thing. Cool.
Yes.
It gets late and needs to prepare to not be dead tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes.
How much longer?
I cannot keep my eyes open anymore.
Oh, really? You're that tired?
Night nights, bye byes.
Okay. Alright. Thanks for being here, Starry. I appreciate it. And I'll see you later.
Bye byes.
Okay, bye-byes.
Yay!
Yay. Alright, everybody. Well, that was fun. Thank you, Starry, for hanging out. Uh-huh. I know a lot of you guys will watch this later, so I'm curious what you guys thought of all that in the comments. Please tell me what you learned. Nix. I get why it's called Minecraft Hell now. Yeah. Yeah, there's no natural regeneration. Hope you have fun. It is pure madness. Madness! I only have to be in Minecraft Hell for a few days, correct? No, not necessarily. Did you listen to the whole video? It's basically until we trust you. So the more you stick around in the streams and the more that you play here, the more likely that you are to be invited. And yeah, we'll start visiting Minecraft Hell more often, so we could see how people's behaviors are, and then we will see who we need to invite. But we definitely need more people in Minecraft Hell to start observing their behavior with other people. So that does matter. So we shall see. We shall see. So I'll say it'll probably be longer than a few days for sure. we got a long way to go. This area is so big. Oh my gosh. Hey guys, hey music player, how's it going? Music player, I have not used you in a while. I love playing my music. Where have you been in my life? And why have you been playing my music? But welcome, music player. Music player, I'm not sure I've seen you in here before. Are you a returning subscriber or are you a new subscriber? Welcome. Good, I've been busy? That's good. Well, I'm glad you're doing something with your life. Returning subscriber? Nice. I appreciate my returning subscribers. Music player, what music do you play? Piano guitar? Nice. Nice. That is so dope. Sacrifice. Do you like the house I made? And I'm a pixel art houses, statue, and logos expert. Oh, that's cool. Do you like my house? I like it. Yes, that's awesome. Yay! I did it in survival. It is all one giant survival build. All of this is survival. You hate it when people cheat in survival. It's not fun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then it's not survival anymore because they cheated. So dumb. I have a t-shirt of Animal Crossing on because it's cute. Nice. That is so dope. I love your shirt. It's amazing. I appreciate it. Me and the squirrel are friends. I've been working on flattening the world. It's very autistic. So this realm private? Mostly, but this is a place you can get invited to. And if you guys want to be invited to it, then go ahead and go to this channel's homepage, and you guys will see a video titled How to Get Invited to All of Our Realms. Watch that, and then you'll see how to get invited to all of our realms. And you can eventually get invited to this one. I know I need to be active. I gotcha. I'd rather get to know the person first rather than add randoms. Yeah, I feel that for sure. Alright, let's see how many steps further we have to go. Really? It's not nighttime yet? Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Alright, we got a lot more to go. "16 blocks high of that mountain. Needs to all be flattened." Can I help you with anything? Just watching is a huge help. Watching this channel and my main channel. Are you subscribed to my main channel? My main channel is called Bryce Barnett. We are almost at 1,000 subscribers. And we also need way more watch hours, so I need your guys' help to watch those videos. Right now we're playing through all the Grand Theft Auto games. So if you like those, then I got good news. I got a whole playlist. The fastest way to get to my main channel is to go to this channel's homepage, scroll to the bottom, and you guys will see all of my channels are linked there, down there. Yes, you are. Awesome. You want to be in my friends list because you're friendly. I appreciate you, music player. I mean, sure, yeah, you're welcome to add me on PSN. I don't know how fast I'll be able to add you back. Just warn you, like, I'm not going to respond very much. I won't be that much of a friend. But you can add me on your friends list. That is a-okay. I'll follow you for now because I gotta get off soon. Okay, sounds good. I appreciate you being here. I'm lurking in chat for a bit. Yay! Appreciate it. That's all I ask. It's just Mon, says Wiener. Hey, how's it going? It's just Mon. Welcome. Welcome. It's just Mon. I'm not sure I've seen you in here before. Are you a returning subscriber or are you a new subscriber? Welcome. Welcome. Looks like they've expanded. Yay, all the way. Very nice. Nice. Need more sheepses. Hope you guys had fun. That was fun time. We did big things. Alright, well, we're going to continue with more Minecraft in the next episode. So to see that one, go ahead and click in the top right corner there. And then to see the previous episode, go ahead and click in the top left corner here. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you very much. And until next time, later days.